Welcome to the Linebreak Rugby podcast. I'm your host Sav, and today we have Ed joining us.
Hello.
That's Ed, otherwise known as Wallopy Joe, on the subreddit.
Yeah, this is my first participation in a Monday podcast.
And
We call it the Monday podcast. I feel now that name has become ironic.
It's a little bit late this time round, mainly because I was away.
And Linebreak doesn't
holiday.
Without Sav.
It struggles. It fits and bursts without me making sure everybody does things. Fits and bursts. So we're going to start, as we normally do, with our player of the week. Having briefly discussed it beforehand, I know Ed's already, but Ed, would you like to introduce your player of the weekend?
My player of the weekend is one of my beloved Quins. It is Kyle Sinclair, one of our props, who put in a man of the match performance. He was absolutely exceptional, ball in hand. Looked rather out of it when he left the field. I think near the end he got properly clobbered.
I saw there was a clip. There was a clip where he carried really hard to the line against two big tacklers, and he came off after that. But his momentum was awesome. He was just crashing.
Was an absolute freight train with ball in hand. And I'm quite pleased because Harlequins have not had... Granted, we've now won, 3 of 6? So we've won our 3 home games, but none of them have been terribly convincing. Even winning against Sarries was a bit ropey, but Nick Evans went off after 40 minutes, which was worrying, because he seems to spend more time broken now than not. But the whole team...
He's getting on.
Yeah, I know. But he's just the greatest. The whole team started to click a lot better. So I was quite pleased with that. Sinclair had an absolute standout performance. I think along with our back three, who collectively, I think they had the best game they've had in all season, and certainly including some of last.
But I mean, if you take it back to your player Kyle, he's absolutely rocking it at the moment, and I think if he keeps showing that ball carrying ability and he gets a good scrummaging, let's just say aura. I can't think of a temperament, good scrummaging temperament. Then Eddie Jones will be a miss. He's got to stick him.
He's got to become especially if he carries on playing like that with that caliber. Because he was exceptional. He was putting in big carry after big carry after big carry, and he did play an awful lot of the game, which props. In fact, the reason he played a lot of the game was because our loose head went off injured, I think, after the first 2 minutes, and then Adam Jones, international tight head prop for Wales, Adam Jones, spent 79 minutes playing loose head. And he played really well in that position. First scrum or two, not great, but he properly picked up. But
I saw an article, actually. I think I don't know if it's the Guardian or the Telegraph or someone saying that Adam Jones out of position played better than Adam Jones in position.
Honestly,
or something like
that. I can't remember the last time I saw him play for Wales, but that sounds about right. He was incredibly good for the portion. In fact, he put 79 minutes out of position, and I know props can switch, but it's not a very common thing.
So maybe rather than give it to Kyle, although he had a fantastic game, we'll give it to the Quins front row.
Almost convinced myself that
the Quins
they did play quite well.
I'm going to talk about the only team that I end up talking about. And Eddie Jones came out quite strongly against them in the media, saying that not everybody should be copying them.
Well, he's got a point, but
100% agree that everybody's got their own style, and you don't want to try and beat them at their own game. But it's New Zealand as a unit and almost as a country. It's got to the point now where they, as a rugby nation, are beating the second, third, fourth best in the world by 30 points. 30 points plus every single time they play. And it's getting to the point where it's like, well, who's the second best? Who's going to fight for that silver medal?
I mean, the rankings are available, but it's not really we can't really properly contestably answer that question certainly until the end of this autumn, and even then it might still be a bit wobbly.
Yeah, I think, and obviously there's the unbeaten year for New Zealand. Was it 2014? The
2013,
unbeaten year?
because that was their last game with Ireland.
2013. Anyway, the
2014, they
unbeaten year.
lost or drew with South Africa, and they lost to Australia once last year.
Oh, did they draw with South Africa?
Yeah, that sounds about right. It's since since they won the 2011 World Cup, they've had 3 losses, 2 draws, and that's a loss each to England, South Africa, and Australia, and a draw with South Africa and Australia. I think that's right.
And this is something that I think that impacts, shall we say, and what happened to Aaron Smith and what happens to New Zealand players when they do something that is perceived as negative. And that's why there were some people saying, well, Aaron Smith, for what he did, shouldn't have been dropped for a match. But the thing is that at the end of the day, Hansen has earned so many plaudits for what he's done that if he says you're dropped, you can't complain, because he has created what is essentially the most successful rugby team in the world. I don't think there's any other rugby team that has been that phenomenal.
Not. Even going by past World Cup winning teams, whether that's South Africa, what is that, 9 years ago now, 2003 England team, 99 Australia team, no one's coming close. It's daunting, I think might be the right word, because the darkness approaches, and there's not much anyone can do at the moment.
England were clean favourites to win in 2003, and I say that, obviously it was an away World Cup, blah, whatever, but they won in a drop goal in extra time.
No one was writing off the Aussies.
They won.
It should be. I mean, we were favourites, but the Aussies were still. They were in a position to contest that.
But you can't imagine this New Zealand team. I mean, it's annoying, because you don't want to just constantly heap praise on the teams that are number one, because obviously the other teams are in a bit of a rebuilding phase. But then you look at the New Zealand team, and then you think, well, Sonny Bill Williams isn't playing, Ngatai's injured, Aaron Smith's being an idiot every so often. So and they're having a 10. Although Barrett is amazing, he's not played as many tests at 10 as most of the other top nations. So
you know what I think one of the biggest indicators is. I went to Twickenham to watch Australia versus Argentina on Saturday. I started watching the New Zealand South Africa game feeling fairly pessimistic, but somewhat hopeful that South Africa could potentially put in a dent to New Zealand's efforts to get another perfect year, which I think they are bang on straight to do. It's not going to be too much problem for them. I left the house at about 60 minutes into the New Zealand match, when it was, I don't think South Africa would score any more points, so it was something like 30-15 or high 20s to 15. And in the final 20 minutes, granted, the All Blacks will usually break away in the last 10-20 minutes to the less fit teams, the smaller teams, definitely the minnows. But the fact that in the time that I left the house to get to Twickenham, the 20 minutes that they had left to play, they scored another 30 points. They scored another 30 uncontested or unopposed points. Yeah.
Well, almost not unopposed, but unresponding.
Which is just phenomenal for any team, and even or especially for, well, not especially, but even for a team as good as this All Blacks team. It was absolutely an incredible performance. I
mean, I know you'll have your own views on this, and Eddie Jones will have his own views on this, and I don't know, I suppose any England fan, any rugby fan will have their own views on this, but I personally do not think that England are close to
not a
beating
chance.
This New Zealand team. I don't think there is a team that is close to beating this New Zealand team.
Just one more thing. It's they could have scored more if Beauden Barrett had actually nailed his kicks, because I think he left about 8 or 10 points on the field.
That's one of his big weaknesses, and I've actually that leads me into a good segue that we can link my article. If we want to have a look at all the tens, all the international tens that play World Rugby at the moment, I have done a stat analysis on their kicking personally, and Barrett's is about 73%. Sapawanga's not much better. Cruden's around that. So for New Zealand kicking at posts, they're not that bothered. They don't really care.
I suppose maybe there are some exceptions. I'm just thinking, is there not a slight divide in that there is, you might say, a little bit of slightly more emphasis on kicking up in the Northern Hemisphere than there is on the South, and thus we're hosting much more 80 to 90% kickers than the South's 70 to 80.
Yeah, and if you want to see that, click on the link below and have a little read of the article. But it is very interesting to see, and especially for me personally,
as a 10,
looking at Barrett compared to Sapawanga, and as a 10, yeah, that's part of it as well. To be honest with you.
So who do you aspire to be then?
As a 10, who do I aspire to be?
Why is it Johnny Wilkin? I'm joking.
I quite like the running 10, mainly because kicking off a tee has always been very inconsistent for me. So I quite liked watching Cipriani play. I quite like watching Barrett play. I think everybody likes watching Barrett play. It is fun to watch, yes. But at default, Johnny was a huge part of rugby growing up. So I always aspired to be as good as him, but I was never that good off the tee. I've always been more of a running 10.
And then I take it then in the twilight of your career, you're going to be a very good defensive 10.
I'll turn into a Charlie Hodgson.
Oh no, I'm just still thinking of Johnny. He started certainly the first 4 or 5 years of his career. He was very, very attack orientated, and then certainly the last 2 or 3, he was an absolutely sensational defender, especially for a 10, I think.
He redefined a 10 role, because if you look at other 10s, even nowadays, I suppose defensively they're not seen as being
Owen
strong.
Farrell, I think, stands above just about everyone else.
And I tell you what, Farrell is a product of Johnny Wilkinson. Although he's a rugby league player in a way, he's certainly you can see signs of that defensive capability.
Minor
from
point.
Johnny.
I'm just suddenly thinking, because Farrell hasn't. I mean, I know he's from a league-ish background.
Yep.
Was he not in the under-20s World Championship, the 12 to George Ford? Even so, going back even to age grade, he was more inside centre before Stuart Lancaster started positioning him
12?
In the central axis.
They've played together at 10 and 12 for sure. I'm not sure. I've always so this is from my biased point of view, and from when I grew up, I didn't really, for some reason, at the under-20s level, look at the 10, 12 positions, because I didn't know who they were. So for me, if I was watching an under-20s game, I was interested in 13, 14, 8, even Sinclair at prop, because I knew those players and I played with those players, so that they were interesting to me, and I was like, oh look, I've played with him, that's cool. So I have a huge blind spot when it comes to that, and everyone bangs on about Ford and Farrell. They used to play together at 10 and 12, but I don't really remember it, sadly. What about yourself? Well, we talked about Kyle Sinclair earlier.
Yeah, you had to bring up my illustrious career as a
Your
prop
illustrious
that ended
career.
when
Well,
I was,
I'm going to move to the front
that
row.
ended at 10 years old.
In the discussion, and we're going to talk about England because it's two Englishmen on a podcast talking about rugby.
And I don't believe the podcast has actually discussed the team selection that happened before everyone was struck down with injuries.
Well, that's interesting, yeah. But I'm interested in your point of view on the Jamie George versus Hartley debate.
Oh, see, I think Jamie George is very quickly becoming one of my favourite players.
Yeah.
Especially his performance for Saracens on Sunday against Wasps was exceptional, because I think he got a brace himself.
He got two good tries.
he is an absolutely cracking hooker. I mean, he is. I feel like the mold broke with him because maybe I suppose you could say he's a tiny bit like Steve Thompson. But just going by his general skill set, his handling for a forward, I think, is absolutely superb. As much as all forwards that I'm aware of want to spend all of their time scrumming down or being in mauls, he has an exceptionally safe pair of hands. He's not, considering his size, which is considerable, he's also not the slowest man on the pitch, which is always quite impressive. And his handling, he can kick. We've seen that we saw that this summer in Australia.
Great grubber kicker, one of the best.
A fantastic grubber kick. He scored a couple of tries against it, or at least he scored at least one try against Oz.
If we just take the bar and we put it at Dane Coles, if we take that bar and put it in Dane Coles,
no one's close to Dane Coles.
No one's close to Dane Coles in terms of speed.
He's got an entire chapter on his own. He's redefining, I suppose, forward play, let alone hooker play.
But I think that if a player was to go his own way as a hooker, and perhaps the more traditional way, I think Jamie George ticks all those boxes. He is
really. I feel like Hartley is the more traditional hooker, and George is the more new wave. Might be a really daft way to put it, but there's something. Maybe it's just because he's doing. Maybe Hartley's representative of just a different age in itself, but he's not.
Yeah.
I think I'm really impressed with him as captain because he has shown. Granted, his temperament while playing for Northampton has on occasion tarred his reputation quite to a very high degree. There are things I'm no longer going to make excuses for, or things I won't defend.
Yeah.
But he has, in an England shirt, been very consistent both as a player and as a leader, and now in the last 8-9 months as a captain. And there are instances where he has been, talking to the ref, and he's being fair and reasonable, and he's listening, he's not back-chatting, and he's telling his other players to go away and leave him be so that he can speak without interjection from others, which is something you don't see a lot of.
I think
normally players,
I think he has a good rugby knowledge, and him actually being able to talk to the ref in that way is a good thing, and to have that captain on the field is an incredibly strong asset and someone who does know the game. The problem is that I just don't think he's the best in that position.
Yeah, that is. I'm not entirely sure he should be. Well, I think one of the big debates is that perhaps he shouldn't actually be starting. And
that's
I know
the
you've probably
problem.
got your eye on. You'll probably have your eye on Luke Cohen-Dickie, and there are probably a few others that are flirting with the fringes of the squad. But
I've had small misgivings. I haven't really talked about Luke Cohen-Dickie, and I don't want to.
It's the mullet, isn't it? It's all the hair.
I don't want to sully his name, shall we say? But there's a couple of no-arm tackles and a couple of. He's very driven and determined in everything he does, and most of it is quality, and his ball carrying skill is brilliant. I just think there's an aspect of his game that needs a polish, but that will come. It's not a huge issue. I don't want to throw him forward. I think Jamie George is closer to the complete article, and Luke Cohen-Dickie is on his way.
He is still relatively young as well.
He's young for a front row forward. He's very young for a front row forward. And obviously it's gutting to hear about all this judo nonsense that's been going on.
The judo doesn't bother me. It's the injuries that are coming from.
Look, I actually think judo was a good idea. I remember.
Oh no, it's who is it? It's McCall, a Saracens coach, has said that he has absolutely no problem with what Eddie Jones is doing. Were he in his position, he'd be doing the same thing. His issue is when he's doing it. And that's because the old 6-day boot camp has turned into 3 2-day boot camps. So the issue isn't so much as what Eddie Jones is doing or how he's going about it. It's just that when he's chosen to do it has now had a more than significant effect on some of the Premiership teams and England going forward into the Autumn Internationals.
Baxter and Blackadder, and the media twists perhaps what any coach will say into a story or a headline. That's a given.
Sure.
But I've never seen Baxter give a clean interview or a statement that would be so obviously negative towards another coach. That was the biggest red flag to me, that maybe something's actually gone wrong here, because Jack Noel and Watson both apparently didn't have their injuries acknowledged.
That's Jesus. I am really disappointed. They are two of our best players easily. Jack Noel, I am especially a fan of, despite that thing he's got growing down the side of his head. But I think it's because he's now out for like 3 months. I think
he's out for a long time. So what
he's
happened
out
with
until
Jack
Christmas.
Is they said that he couldn't put power down on it or something, and then it was just a little bit sore, and he couldn't put any pressure on it. And then they did a scan and found that it was a massive tear in his quad, and essentially that was just him done. He can't play rugby for a while.
Yeah.
But the English medical staff didn't even pick this up and didn't scan him, didn't do anything. So Baxter came out quite angrily about that. And I didn't, because I'm not a massive Bath fan, I didn't really read up on it. But Blackadder has come out and said the same thing, similar about Watson's jaw, and said that they just didn't pick it up. And then he came back to the Bath team and he's got a bust jaw or something.
How do you miss a broken jaw, though?
I think it was a fracture, but I'm thinking to myself, either both these boys are completely communicative or whatever. They're just not actually telling the medical staff. But at the end of the day, the medical staff and the coaches are meant to be there looking at them and going, what's wrong with you? You know, any niggles, anything, blah blah blah. You know, looking after them. And obviously, there's something going wrong there. I don't know. I don't know if we can blame Eddie Jones. I don't know if there's something actually wrong with the communication, but something went weird, and the players are now injured. So yeah.
And it's affecting, I think, most of all, it's affected what, 3 or 4 of our flankers?
Yeah, who's it? Mike Williams is injured now, isn't he?
Yeah, because I mean, if you start off the fact that we're missing Haskell, and then his replacement, was it someone Jones or
Sam Jones for Wasps?
Sam Jones gets injured, and now
is Guy Thompson? He's just got left out. Guy Thompson just got left out.
I keep seeing on the subreddit everyone saying, "Oh, you know, what does Kvesic have to do now?" And it's the thing is, though, I still feel of the matches that I've watched of Gloucester, he does seem very, very, very liable to concede a penalty every now and again, and
the refs do not like him.
Yeah, that is said. I was really worried, just bringing it back slightly, watching Saracens against Wasps on Sunday, was how many penalties both Itoje and Cruz were conceding. Mm-hmm. Like a worrying... I mean, I know Itoje generally does this thing where he tries to find out where exactly the line is that he can and can't cross with the ref.
Yeah.
But I think together, the two of them must have been up to about 6 or 7, 8 by the end of the game.
There's an interesting thing.
That's not great.
No, there's an interesting thing for me where Itoje is the golden boy of England, and
except he's not anymore because he lost.
But he gets away. He gets away with some borderline things, because the ref almost gives him a second chance. There was a point where Itoje had his hands on the ball, and for Kvesic, that's a straight penalty. Your hands on the ball when you're off your feet, blah blah blah, straight penalty for Kvesic. For Itoje, and I'm saying this just from a biased point of view, I like Itoje, but I just thought it was a bit weird. Itoje got a second chance. The ref's like, hands away now, and he's still going at it, hands away, and eventually he put his hands away, and the ball's already slowed down, no penalty. They just played on, and I was just thinking, he's getting a bit of leeway, and he knows he's getting a bit of leeway, and he's running with it.
Yeah. So I suppose when he starts getting caught more, I tell you what, this is apropos of nothing in particular, but I've got highlights of the Wasps versus Saracens game on a loop, just because I keep missing the bit I want to catch. But I know we've mentioned Billy Vunipola on the pod at least a couple of times, and how much he is trimmed down.
Yeah,
his brother as well, Mako, he's as long as he can still carry the power that he did, he is looking so much healthier, and he still looks like he's 50 years old. He's in much, much better shape, and I'm really pleased that since Eddie Jones has come on, that Maybe the next one, George will start looking less like a fridge.
No, well,
But
yeah, maybe. I think the
I think it's just
Saracens
worth pointing
strength
out
and
that their
conditioning
fitness has
team has gone to
picked
town.
up.
I think they've really gone to town on these boys and told them, let's get you fit and live and ready to absolutely destroy. Because if you look at the best eights in the world at the moment, we've got Issa for
Kieran
Argentina, we've got Reed.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of another. I mean, Vunapola's up there. Falatau, he's
What
it.
about who's currently playing 8 for South Africa? Because Vermeulen's not anymore.
Oh,
Or at
Whiteley.
least I think there's a
Whiteley?
lot of deaths. Yeah.
I think it's
I
Whiteley.
don't know him too well.
He's a unit, to be fair. He's not necessarily a quick player, but most of those names that I've named, they're strong ball carriers, but they're not like round people at the back.
No.
They're not like massively bulky. They're just
Falatau's got to be the most dynamic with Parise.
yeah. I mean, yeah, probably, to be honest. But Reed's up there. Reed, if we talk about New Zealand again, Reed plays a very different game depending who his partners on the pitch are.
Yeah.
He'll range from being the defensive stalwart to being the rangy outside wing option almost.
Well, yeah, he can. I think it's incredible watching him when he does, because he does have the ability to play like an outside back, where he will dash down the side of the pitch, leap into the air to pluck the ball out from wherever it might be.
Oh yeah.
And carry on like it's absolutely nothing, like he's been playing fullback or wing for the entire match. It's incredible.
That's the New Zealand kickoff special, is when they stick it in the air and Reed's underneath it, and you can't do anything about it because he is a monster at catching the ball above his head like that.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, we'll go back to talking about New Zealand, I'm sure, in every single podcast from here to eternity. But you know,
Yeah.
they are the
England
team at the moment, and England. Wow.
Yeah, naturally.
Now we talked about New Zealand a lot. We've talked about England a lot. Shall we briefly touch on Argentina, Australia? Because I know that's another game that you watched.
Well, yeah, and I did. I mean, I think it was. I was a bit disappointed. Again, it was another game where the end result could have been slightly more. It would have been fairly heavily affect.
We should tell everyone that you were actually in the ground.
I was at Twickenham. Yeah, I had stunning seats as well. I was in. In fact, I tell you what, it's if you're on Slack, are you able to find the pictures that I uploaded?
I can, but not right now.
If not, I can. Well, yeah, I can try uploading them again. The point is that, as far as I'm aware, the tickets were fairly expensive until they realised they weren't selling enough, and then about 80 or 90% of the seats that were initially available dropped to £20 each, and so I think about. All of the seats in Twickenham, they're all sorted into blocks. You've got the L, which are the lower, the M, which is the middle tier, and the T, which is the top. They didn't open up the top tier, which pissed me off slightly, but perhaps they couldn't even sell that many tickets. But every single seat in the middle tier dropped to £20.
Yeah.
And with the exception of the seats either side of the tunnel, up to about the 22. They were £25 to £85 range, and everything else on the lower tier, going all around the sides and the opposite side of the tunnel, were all £20. So I was looking down. I think I was just forward of the 22 line, 20 rows back from the front.
What was the?
That is.
I mean, that is a fantastic seats, and I think it will.
Atmosphere was amazing as well.
What was your feeling? Like, what was the actual vibe? Because I didn't see the whole game. I only caught snapshots of it.
It was generally good spirits all around. There was. I'm trying to think where I was.
Because apparently some swing low broke out every so often.
Oh, I didn't mean to do it, but it started breaking out, and I properly stood up and yelled at them to please stop, which is not the kind of thing I'd ever expect myself to do.
Good.
And I just had a whinge saying, "England aren't even playing. What are you doing?"
Yeah.
And got a couple of funny looks, and someone told me to shut up. But
no,
whatever. It broke. It's ridiculous. It broke out, I think, 3 times, and it just winds me up. There was one corner of the pitch. I'm trying to remember who was playing in which direction first, because I was on I was in L23, so either way, the corner on the long side,
Mm-hmm.
on one of the long sides, I was looking at the pitch closer to the right hand side.
Yep.
The corner on the left hand side they got bored a lot. Because granted, we had an absolutely great. They would have had the best view of the first action of the game, which was, oh, that's right. The game started off with Argentina, from my perspective, going right to left, and they scored the most incredible try that got called back for, I think, a forward pass or an obstruction.
Okay.
Which I think was a bit disappointed, because I think in the end it was the right call. So that corner of the pitch had a cracking view of that. But yeah, they got very bored toward the end of the match, and they were constantly trying to Mexican wave, sing, which was annoying.
Anything to just get something going.
Yeah.
Well,
I almost wanted to blow my brains out, because about 5 or 6 rows back there was what I thought was a little boy yelling, "Come on, Australia, Australia, yeah, come on, Australia," non-stop for the entire match. Turned out it was like a 6-year-old girl. I didn't have the I wasn't going to start yelling at any of that anymore, but it was so annoying.
Very passionate fan.
I really dislike how much booing there is, though. For when Argentina was conceding penalties, people would boo, and when Australia was scoring points, well, not when Australia was scoring points, but there was a big disparity between who was cheering for who.
People were booing.
Not quite, but I did enjoy the game. It was decent. I would have rather Argentina had won, and if they'd had I don't get why Sanchez wasn't playing at 10. I must have missed it on the day.
Sanchez, Issa, they were missing.
Issa wasn't playing. Yeah. I don't think Amorosino was playing.
Yeah. There were a lot of players missing, and Matera played instead, and not instead, but was the enforcer for instead of.
But
Issa.
it was a good match, or at least I enjoyed it while I was there. The atmosphere around me was great. The fans were great. Argentinian fans, I think, are my favourite in the world, just because they sing all the time. It's amazing.
I quite enjoyed the self-deprecating nature of the Scots when we were in Murrayfield.
Yeah, yeah.
They were.
I didn't soak up enough of that atmosphere. I feel it was.
They were reasonably pessimistic about the whole thing.
I think I'll keep it to myself that the Welsh are my least favourite fans.
Okay, keep that on the down.
I won't tell anyone about that. The one thing I do really want to bring up, though, is, I kind of knew it already, but I cannot get over how much of a complete wanker Nick Phipps is. Because honestly, that happened directly in front of where I was sitting with my family.
He's a twat.
It was unbearable, because I don't want to say it was like watching it in slow motion, but that is the most vivid memory I have of the match, which was Phipps kicked a ball out of the field because it was a scrum, and I keep seeing people going on about, oh, what if he wanted to play quickly, which he couldn't do. And then one of the little kids on the side, all the ball boys, one of them throws the ball in, and it's heading more towards Argentina's physio, and it's coming to him, so he looks like he's going to catch it and then pass it on to whoever's closest to him. And the moment the ball comes near him, he gets shoved to the ground by an angry Australian scrum half. But that's not even the best bit, because once that's happened, the Argentinian player must have run at least 15, maybe 20 yards to probably.
Nowhere, didn't he? He was miles away.
Oh, he didn't come out of maybe on. No, I've watched the highlights. On the screen, he comes out of nowhere. I saw his entire run up. It was divine. Gave Phipps an almighty shove, and I do think Phipps definitely should have been sin-binned for that. I think there's absolutely no excuse whatsoever to lay hands at all, for whatever reason, on a member of staff who isn't playing. That's just bollocks to the highest degree.
I think.
Granted, Physio
there's a
probably
line.
shouldn't have been where he was, but he just no. Here's the thing: he'd just been delivering water, was walking off the pitch, ball is flying at him, and so wouldn't you just catch it and then pass it on rather than step aside and watch it bounce somewhere while game is still the clock's still off?
Yeah,
There's
a line that you shouldn't cross as a player, and it doesn't matter how. and obviously this is in the heat of the moment. Maybe, I don't know. I've seen the replay. It seemed fairly heat at the moment, but there shouldn't be a time where you put your hands on another member of staff or whatever. Like there's no point. What's going to happen is they're going to get sent off and they won't be allowed to be a physio for a little bit or suspended for something that they shouldn't have done, or you're going to get yourself in trouble. Now, the thing that's going to affect the outcome of the match is obviously you getting yourself in trouble. So yeah, the players need to keep a cool head, even if they perceive something bad's happening. But there wasn't anything happening, so kid's being an idiot.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to sadly wrap this up very shortly, Ed.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. I might have to go soon as well, but I just thought otherwise. Aside from that moment of granted, I almost wish that it would break out into a proper fight, so someone would get binned or sent off, as was deserved. But it was a fairly decent match. Not the best match, and I'm sure not as good as the absolute trouncing that the Box received on behalf of
I think it's
the All
good
Blacks.
for...
But especially while being in the stadium, you get a much better feel for a game, I think, than... I'd say there are positives and negatives both to watching on TV and watching out the actual pitch, but it's always a great experience whenever you go, so... I was pleased enough with being there.
So this is a Linebreak recommendation. Go out, watch your local team, and actually enjoy the stadium and the atmosphere, and get a pie or get a hog roast. If you're
that's if you're ever on your. This is personal recommendation. If you are ever watching a game at Twickenham, and you decide I'm going to subject myself to the most uncomfortable train journey ever, and pack into the most overcrowded overground train you've ever been on, to get to Twickenham train station. It is one of my favourite experiences walking from the train station to the stadium. It may be a quarter or a half a mile, and they have to close traffic to those roads as well as either side of the big roundabout just before the stadium. And so you've got tens of thousands of people funneling through these streets, and the people on either side either rent out their driveways or set up shop themselves. And there is always this one house sets up this homemade donut spot where they've got one of those great big metal machines, got the funny little ploppy thing that drops out the donut batter, and they go across and then they flip and then they get covered in cinnamon or sugar, and I think it's £6 for £3 or something like that, or £6 for £2.50, and they're just my favourite thing ever.
They
absolutely, honestly, there is
got an unofficial
it's childhood mememories.
They've unofficially sponsored us
all up in my face, but that's my personal recommendation. And if there are also lots of South Africans with
if you're in Twickenham,
places with bray and barbecue. But the best one, there's one that was there for the World Cup, which I've not seen since, selling biltong, which was amazing. Yeah. I do
like biltong. Having a South African girlfriend, I have actually sampled the delights of biltong. And a braai.
I still don't, so you can tell everyone, and I'll learn as well.
For a long period of time.
Oh, okay.
But I think it's like a grill or a barbecue situation.
Brian Majority in one of his videos,
so I think his title, like,
to braai is to not barbecue or something. It's to braai is to something. It's braai.
It's braai. It's braai. I'm pretty sure they say braai.
I'll make sure I get that right from now on.
I'm pretty sure that's the way they say it. I mean, I'm not.
But yeah, final thoughts? Do you reckon?
Final thoughts. Go and watch your local rugby team. Even if you're not in England, if you're not in Ireland, Scotland, if you're in
and is for some reason listening to us,
have a huge rugby presence, find out who your local team is. Yeah, go and watch them. Go and support, and just you being interested in that is actually going to generate something, a buzz or an idea behind rugby that actually it might be a viable sport in a smaller part of the world. Smaller in the sense of rugby, not smaller in the sense of population. Because I think the US needs people, bums on seats in the US, bums on seats in Canada, Argentina, everywhere.
Well, there's coming up, it's the Autumn Internationals soon, so
let's
we
have a global
Autumn Internationals coming up soon, and New Zealand will be playing Ireland in Chicago, so that should be special. European, hang on just 1 second. Christ. European rugby starts this weekend. Worth giving a shout out.
Right, that's going to be it. I've literally got to walk out the door right now. I've been Sav. He's been Ed.
Hello.
You can't say hello at the end.
No, well, I did anyway. Yeah.
Right.
So, that good?
Yeah. So that's it. The
Brilliant.
outro music should just be playing.
Playing now. Awesome.
Excellently at the end. There.
Yeah. This is actually great timing. I've just missed 2 calls from my sister. She's going to get pissed off that I've hung up on her twice. And yeah,
I'll right. I've got to go.
Yeah. I'll send you the pictures on Slack.
I'm stopping my recording now.
So you don't have to dig them up. And I'll send this to you
send them on Slack.
whenever. Okay. Cool. See ya.